We're good, sir.
Okay, are we live and audio is working and everyone can hear?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Virtual Homelessness and Poverty Committee. It's our regular hearing. I am joined by Monica Rodriguez and Mike Bonin, so we have quorum. But before I turn it over to our clerk to call the roll, I'd like to remind everyone to make sure that they're on mute when not speaking. It helps with the sound quality. So with that said, Mr. Villanueva, please call the roll.
Certainly, sir. Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell.
Present.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Here.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. Councilmember David Rue. You have 3 members, sir. You have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. And it is my understanding that Mr. Rue is excused from today's meeting, but we will be joined soon by Mr. Harris Dawson. In a moment, we'll take up to 1 hour to hear from members of the public who wish to comment on items specific to today's agenda, and 1 minute for general public comment. I'll turn it over to our city attorney in a moment to explain the speaking rules to the members of the public calling in, and to our city clerk to provide the necessary information for the public to dial in. So, Madam Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to you and the members. Katrina Archuleta with the City Attorney's Office. To the members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which agenda item you would like to speak on. You will have up to 1 minute per item to speak, with a total allotment of 2 minutes total. And then you will be given 1 minute for general public comment. We will tell you when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you are not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you are speaking on a specific agenda item, you will get a brief warning from either the chair or myself. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic, or if you again stray off topic, the chair will cut you off, and you will forfeit the rest of your speaking time, and we will move on to the next speaker. We will take up to 1 hour total of public comment time, as the chair said. Finally, for people dialing in to speak, Zoom has reconfigured its settings. So we used to be able to move everyone from the Zoom waiting room muted into the meeting all at once. We can no longer do that. Now we have to move speakers into the meeting one at a time, unmuted. So when you hear someone address you, you're in the meeting unmuted, and it's your turn to speak. Unfortunately, when you're in the waiting room, music will be playing. So we understand that you'll likely be listening to the meeting on another device while waiting to address the council committee. Please try, though, to keep one ear on your phone so you can hear when you're moved into the meeting. There is a time delay between the live meeting and the broadcast, and it will cause a lot of confusion if you just listen to the broadcast. So as soon as you hear someone address you on the phone, please immediately stop listening to the broadcast and turn down the volume on the broadcast to avoid any feedback. Then you will state which agenda item you would like to speak on, and you may begin speaking. We know the situation is not ideal, and we thank you for your patience and your cooperation, but we are doing the best we can given Zoom's new meeting setting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Villanueva, if you could please read the instructions for the public to call in.
Certainly, sir. The audio for this meeting is broadcast live on the internet at www.lact.org. The live audio can also be heard at 213-621-2489. Again, the number is 213-621-2489. Or you can also dial in 818-904-9450. Again, that's 818-904-9450. Members of the public who would like to offer public comment on the items listed on the agenda should call 669-254-5252. Again, the number is 669-254-5252. 5252 and use meeting ID number 160-817-9748. Again, the meeting ID number is 160-817-9748, and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for the participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Just as a note for this committee, today, everyone, if all items on this agenda are approved, we will be authorizing an additional 59 new supportive housing units. Just wanted to point that out for the record. We're ready to take public comment, so let's please bring in the first caller.
A caller with the phone number ending in 753, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 7543, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Item number 3, my name is Lionel Mares.
Go ahead, sir, and we're ready for you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm calling on item number 3 regarding the homelessness. I believe that we should have social workers out there evaluating and trying to de-escalate situations involving certain individuals who might be homeless or suffering from a mental breakdown rather than law enforcement, because sometimes law enforcement will react too quickly and may end up killing these individuals who are homelessness, who are experiencing mental traumatic events. And I believe that we should have like a dedicated phone line to call social services or social workers or counselors who are ready to be on standby to help out these individuals. Because in my neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley, there's this person who has a mental health problem, and occasionally she comes here in my streets, and I feel bad for her because I know that it's not her fault. She's suffering, she might need medication or something, and I feel bad for some of the individuals. So we need social services funding.
Thank you very much. Hey, that's been your 1 minute. Thank you so much. And that's something that this council is working on from a motion that was introduced a couple of months ago. So we can help update you on how that is progressing, exactly what you're bringing up. All right, we're ready for the next caller.
A caller with the phone number ending in 9204. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 9204. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name's Adam Smith. My name's Adam Smith, and I'd like to speak on number 3 in song form.
All right, you have 1 minute.
It's so obvious to see that nothing good's gonna come from Stafford B. Despite the values that cops have found, there shouldn't be police interacting with the unhoused. It's time to see on the LAPD. Deep on the LAPD. Deep on the LAPD. MHC, that doesn't mean expand the CSPD. On the LAPD. What's up, Mike Bonin?
All right, thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7564. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7564. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
My name is Craig R., and I'd like to speak on item 3 plus general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each item.
Thank you. As I said, my name is Craig R., and I'm a 16-year resident in Skid Row. And about the system-wide mental assessment response team, or SMART teams, the program was to ensure trained mental health workers would respond to mental health crisis, limiting someone's interactions with police officers. Police officers cannot and should not act as mental health first responders. Now, according to Council members Bonin, Harris Dawson, and Ryu, we should be, quote, reimagining public safety and, quote, exploring alternatives to police. The three of you should then start with removing police from mental health and outreach teams altogether. You should defund the police and reinvest in mental health responders. Reimagining the police and safety situation means removing the police from mental health and outreach teams. And my general public comment is this. Remember the racialized risk of this current COVID-19 situation. And by racialized risk, I mean the disproportionate risk to communities of color of job loss, unsafe jobs, evictions, homelessness, wealth loss, and resources and healthcare deprivation. All the problems of racism in the society are being exaggerated in this situation by quote-unquote racialized risk of getting not what we need in order to help people like the poor people of color in Skid Row. Keep this in mind at all times and remove the police from the entire mental health system, and we'll get much better results. That's obvious. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 6395. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 6395. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi.
Yes, we can.
Hello. Oh, hi, wonderful. My name is Emily, and I'd like to speak on item 3, please.
Okay, 1 minute, Emily.
Wonderful, thank you. So I believe that the original idea behind the system-wide mental assessment response team program was to ensure trained mental health workers would respond to mental health crisis, limiting someone's interaction with police officers. Police officers cannot and should not act as mental health first responders. I think that's something that needs to change right away. And for the past month, for many, many months, we've been demanding to defund the police. The money spent on the police force could be used to fund caseworkers for the outreach program instead of having police officers responding to these cases. It's just not needed and unnecessary. We also have Care Plus sweeps that force people to move their belongings or risk losing them, which leads to panic and anxiety for many unhoused people in our neighborhoods. And it just creates even more mental health issues. So we need services and not sweeps, and care and not cops. We need to reimagine public safety and have alternatives to police forces. We need to defund the police.
Your 1 minute is up. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 5318. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 5318. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Gina Viola, and I'd like to speak on items 2, 3, and general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 2 minutes for the items and 1 minute for general public comment.
Thank you. Item 2, the Triple H. Where is the audit for that? I feel like what has happened is you've scurried to open up 6 or 7 bridge homes so that you can show you've used some of that money very quickly and inefficiently. I mean, it has been an absolute failure of fiscal management to the nth degree. The only people who are winning with any of that Triple H money are developers and private entities. It has not done anything to make a dent in housing folks on the street. Item number 3, mental health. You cannot, under no circumstances should LAPD be responding to anyone with a mental health crisis. We have seen over and over again people having mental health episodes killed by the LAPD. Grishario Mack is a perfect example of that. Gunned down in the Crenshaw Hills Mall having a mental health episode. Anytime you partner the LAPD with any of these housing outreach agencies such as LAHSA, you render them absolutely useless. The houseless folks on the street are afraid of LAHSA. I have a houseless man that lives close to me, and I have been trying to get him some help, and he's hiding from the LAHSA folks because he knows that brings the LAPD, and that's on you. My general public comment is this. The fact that there even is a homelessness and poverty committee in this city is quite frankly shocking. Orgs have been out in the streets doing your jobs for you from the moment this pandemic began. Street Watch LA, K-Town for All, LA Can, SELA. That is who should be getting funding for helping folks out on the street. You have residents going out every single day delivering frozen waters. And Mitch O'Farrell, you can't even leave the bathrooms open in Echo Park. So the fact that you chair this committee just tells me that this committee is absolutely useless. You all need to step down and let folks out on the street who are actually doing the work fund those organizations so they can go further and continue to do more. You folks sitting in your air-conditioned homes have absolutely no idea how to help a houseless person. You truly, truly do not. I mean, what we've seen happen with this problem is outrageous. Outrageous. That's all I have.
Thank you. And just for the record, the restrooms at the north end of Echo Park Lake have been open 24/7 for several months, and I'm funding the security and the cleanliness of those restrooms for people experiencing homelessness, along with storage lockers, along with mobile showers, and hygiene stations, for the record. We're ready for the next caller. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0304, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 0304, please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, I'd like to speak on item 3 in general public comment.
All right, you have 1 minute for each.
My name is Pilar Schiavo. I live in CD12 and am extremely concerned that my council member is bringing forward something that would increase policing of unhoused folks. We, through West Valley Homes Yes and the West Valley People's Alliance, do outreach to our unhoused neighbors weekly. Through Lovey, we've been doing it since the pandemic started because of food insecurity and the incredible impact that this pandemic has had on unhoused folks. And we interact with folks from anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 interactions a month, and we've had 0 incidents. We've had 0 need for police. And I believe that anyone on this committee and anyone calling in, if they needed mental health support, they would not be calling the police for it. So we cannot be recommending things that we would not do ourselves. For our unhoused neighbors, police mean threat, they mean harassment, they mean intimidation. There is no circumstances in which this is someone who is going to help de-escalate a situation. And in fact, in Reseda, when a mother called recently, just a couple weeks ago, because her son was having a mental health crisis, he was shot and later died. So we know that police not only escalate these situations, but in fact can lead to death. This is not a solution for mental health crisis. This is not a solution for unhoused folks. We know that police are out harassing folks. We have incidents of them pulling people out of their tents in the middle of the night in the rain, not allowing them to put clothes on. These are the kinds of interactions that happen in CP12. And those police that cannot then come out and be expected to somehow support someone in a mental health crisis. We need to reimagine policing. We need to take police out of this scenario in any way related to homelessness.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with a phone number ending in 6975. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with a phone number ending in 6975. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Jewel. I'd like to speak on item 3 in general public comment.
Okay, Jewel, that's 1 minute for each.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I live in District 4. Hi, Councilmember Yu. One of the top headlines in the news this week was police shoot 13-year-old boy after mother calls for help with mental health crisis. I'm sure you all saw that. I'm just echoing what a lot of other people are bringing up here. When police officers act as mental health first responders, they shoot people. People die. Council members, if you are listening, you need to prove it. We need services, not sweeps. We need care, not cops. You can remove police from mental health outreach teams today. Do it today. And for the record, Mitchell Farrell, you may have unlocked the bathrooms at Echo Park, but you're the one who locked them in the first place. For the record. Thank you.
Did you also want to make a general public comment? You have 1 more minute.
No, that's all.
All right.
Caller with a phone number ending in 1721. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with a phone number ending in 1721. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name's Sachin, and I'd like to speak on item 3 in general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each.
Like a lot of people have said here, and hopefully as you all know, people are afraid to call the police when they're having a mental health crisis. They're afraid that they're going to have a police officer show up with a gun, and as has been done tragically so many times, someone will end up dead. And this is the same with just general outreach to people experiencing homelessness, and this is just true for housed people as well. It's shown that especially people of color are afraid to call the LAPD or call 911, even in medical emergencies, because they're afraid of reprisal or of criminalization. And it makes sense to me. Think about it. What can the LAPD do for someone? They can give them a ticket. They can kill them. They can arrest them. They can physically, brutalize them and move them. Those are the tools in the toolkit of the LAPD. So why would we try to tie this sort of violence and criminalization with outreach services and mental health services? It doesn't make sense, and it defeats the purpose. There are programs across the country that have non-law enforcement mental health outreach and crisis intervention services, and they are far cheaper and far more effective than the programs that we have here in LA, where we've just tied an outreach worker to a police officer and have them show up at places. So I really, really hope that if what you want to do is to try to actually provide services that people will use and provide a team that will go out and help someone in a time of crisis or just help someone because they need help, that you will divorce that from an armed, lethal, force of people who have a track record of brutalizing unhoused folks. I think it was a third of all use of force incidences by the LAPD were against the unhoused, even though they only represent 1% of the population. And it was, I think, a fourth of lethal force incidents. So please divorce mental health services and homelessness outreach services from armed, lethal law enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with a phone number ending in 0785. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with a phone number ending in 0785. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you. Which items you'd like to speak on, please?
Hi, item 3. My name's Molly. I'm calling because... Okay, thank you. I'm calling because we need to remove police from mental health care crises. Police cannot and should not respond to mental health crises. Too often it ends in citizens being shot or traumatizing them further. It is ineffective and it causes harm. We need trained mental health professionals, not someone with minimal training with guns in their hands. Sweeps also cause more mental health crises. You're sending further trauma and making it more difficult for houseless folks to become housed. Not only do they cause mental and physical health issues, but many times sweeps destroy the documentation that has been gathered over a stretched period of time in order to get jobs and housing. Please remove police from mental health outreach altogether. Defund the police and reinvest that money into trained mental health responders, not responders that do harm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Or with a phone number ending in 8921. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending 88.
Issues, but many times people good documentation that has been gathered over a stretched period of time in order to get jobs and housing.
You need to turn off your other device. And then we can
defund the police and reinvest that money into trained mental health responders.
You need to turn off your other device. Are you there?
Caller with the phone number ending in 8921. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Thank you. My name is Angela, and I'd like to speak on item 3 and make a public comment.
Okay,
We, the people, have been demanding. Thank you. The people have been demanding you to defund the police. The money spent on police officers working as case managers and outreach workers in the SMART program could be invested in community-based solutions that include trained mental health workers as first responders. Care Plus sweeps that force people to move their belongings or risk losing them lead to panic and anxiety, especially with badges and guns involved. And if their belongings aren't trashed, in Hollywood, for example, a sign is posted notifying the unknown person that they need to travel 9 miles to retrieve their personal belongings that were taken. We need services, not sweeps, care, not cops. I've been a community member of Hollywood since 1988. I listen to police interactions with the public on purpose. One incident under my window where someone called the police because a man was sitting on top of their car. When police arrived, they could assess he was unwell and cooperative. The police response, and I quote, "You're crazy, aren't you?" with a laugh. Calling someone crazy is dismissive and unhelpful and shows the intent is not to find the needs of this person, only to protect personal property. Our outside living neighbors are victims of repeated trauma and should be receiving care, not cops. The police inflict more trauma by their very presence. They need homes, not zones. Defund the police and take that money and put it in place in a Department of Care and Resources. I'm not afraid of the unwell unless they come with a police badge and guns and give authority to harass and kill with impunity. That should scare all of you. Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7040. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 7.
15-year gap. I mean, it's very strange that way. For the nostalgia, it's good. For the gaming, it's good. But for the story,
hello, you caller. If you turn off your other device, we're ready for you.
Oh, hello?
Hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please give us your name and which items you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Vetter, and I'd like to speak on item 3.
Okay, you have 1 minute, Caitlin.
Great, thank you. So when we say reimagine public safety, that means we have to meet the demands of Angelenos and defund the police. Police officers lack the training, the accountability, and the empathy to act as mental health first responders. The SMART program's original intent was to ensure that mental health workers would respond to mental health crises and not officers who seem to not be able to de-escalate. This would protect vulnerable people from being killed. Please make sure the original intent of SMART, ensuring mental health workers and not cops respond to mental health crises, remains intact. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 9973. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 9978. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 9973.
Yes, hi. I'd like to speak on item number 3.
Okay, you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I mean, just plain and simple, the police, they're not the appropriate first responders for mental health crises. I mean, we just had an example, it wasn't here, but in Salt Lake City, 13-year-old boy was shot, and he's autistic, and cops should not have been the ones responding to this call. I mean, we should be able to protect the citizens, and we have police showing up, and they're trained for violent engagement, not for citizens who are experiencing health issues, health crises. So instead of investing in bullets and tear gas and all the things that go into these massive budgets, this money could be providing for mental health. We could find, and the mental health and resources that you already find in wealthy neighborhoods and wealthy communities. So please, I mean, you guys, we need you to take action. We are calling out to you as citizens and as Angelinos. This is your job. This is your responsibility to take care of us. And we need you to act right now to be sure that we are getting the proper care for mental health crises. So that's all. Police just are not the right first responders for so many of these crises in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7022. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 7022. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yeah, please turn off your other device, and then we're ready for you.
Hello? Unmute yourself.
Yeah, we just need you to turn off your other device or turn it down, and then we can.
Am I ready to speak?
Yes. Your name and which item, sir?
Yeah, good morning. My name is General Dogon, and I'd like to speak on item 3 and public comment.
Okay, General, 1 minute for each.
All right. Defund the police. LAPD is not a mental health hospital, so stop calling for mental health services. Just because a person is having a mental health moment doesn't mean they are violent or a threat. It only means that that person's needs are not being met at that time. It's a time to listen and help, not a time to think you are better than or know more or what's best, or at worst, a time to criminalize. It's your policy and response that's getting people killed. Cops responding to nonviolent incidents with supercharged adrenaline flowing, Mississippi-style racist policing, which leads to murdering folks like Charlie Africa, Brandon Glenn, and Ezel Ford, just to name a few. At a time when the whole nation is talking about defund versus abolish the police, LA City Council members like Mitch continue to ignore Angelinos and attempt to backdoor cash the LAPD under the guise of another community safety program. The current fight is about moving away from this motto and creating a new one without the police. Healthcare, sanitation, housing has been greatly entangled with criminalization by this committee, which has urged you to name the Criminalization Committee. Defund the police, abolish all LAPD community programs, invest that money into housing and a community right now. All power to the people. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 4891. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 4891. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Charles Porter, item number 3.
Thank you, Charles. You have 1 minute.
All right. I work with United Coalition East, a drug prevention program in Skid Row, and I speak on behalf of concerned coalition members and in solidarity with Services Not Sweeps. Homelessness is rooted in racism, poverty, and trauma, all of which can create and exacerbate mental illness and substance abuse. Personal behaviors and afflictions of the poor are visible because they cannot afford privacy, but mental illness and substance abuse also permeates affluent communities. The needs of those struggling with addiction and mental illness should be addressed by community-based services, advocates, healers, and health promoters, and should not be within the purview of law enforcement. Peer engagement involving those with lived experience works, and the Skid Row Community Refresh Spot is a prime example of a responsive resource that is highly utilized, and its utilization stands as a proof of its success. Let's invest in creative, trauma-informed solutions that link trained, culturally responsive professionals with peer advocates and liaisons. This would enhance care efforts and could also create economic opportunities for people experiencing homelessness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 2881. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 2881. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 2881. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
About my father's business, Homeless Outreach Ministry. I'd like to speak on items 2, 3, and 4 with a public comment.
Okay, you have 2 minutes for your items and 1 minute for public comment.
I'm trying to make this fast. All right, as far as item number 2 with the oversight of the HHH proposition bond issuance, I think that the fiscal impact, looking at that, I think that a lot of money is spent on the supportive housing, and maybe we could come up with other items. We have brought to several council districts a model of housing that is really affordable and it's permanent, and some of the other committees that I work with. And a lot of people are interested, and the thing is, it's like the city is punishing itself because of the zoning. The zoning keeps from, it makes it relatively almost impossible to put some of these units in place because the city has basically made, laws that keep those units from being built. So I'd like to talk more about that at another time. Also on item number 3, I agree with all of the callers. Mental health really should be addressed by mental health agencies. It could be Department of Mental Health. There are a lot of clinicians that work with the unhoused community that will send out teams for outreach when these things come about. And I think that, having the police as a first responder really isn't a good idea. I was a police officer some time ago, and when issues like that arose, we always called the fire department or, somebody that could, take the person to ER and have them helped, because mental health is still a health issue. And have them evaluated that way. But that was a long time ago. But now you have these units in the city, and we should use them, and that's fiscally responsible. I think it's irresponsible to send the police department because that's a waste of tax dollars. It really is. And being unhoused isn't a crime. And I'd also like to speak to issue number 5, which is the strategy and performance report of the housing strategy. And again, I think all of this, I just see a lot of fiscal waste, because I think if housing navigators and case managers, city officials, advocates all work together, if there was some kind of a hub where there was a sharing of information, people could be housed properly, and they could be put into affordable units. But when the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, none of this is coming together. It would be great if the worker who was the navigator knew who the case manager was, and if they, could work together with the council district, and the care team. If all of that information was there and everybody was on one.
Okay. Thank you so much, caller. Your time is up. Great points. Thank you. Next call.
Where there was a caller with the phone number ending in 0292. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Erica Blumfield, and I'd like to speak on item 3 and public comment.
Okay, Erica, you have 1 minute for each.
I called today because I have a very personal experience. I have mental illness. I live with bipolar, and I get treated for it. Before I had proper treatment, I have been, police had been called, and I'm a petite woman, and I was thrown to the ground, cuffed brutally. My face was pushed into the gravel. So I feel as though it's essential to send trained mental health professionals. And when I went missing and my family tried to find me after 3 times of police brutality, there wasn't even a record of it. So my family couldn't find me. So I just believe strongly that it's so important. One of my mental health counselors was a police officer in the past, and he agrees with me. Mental health professionals should be sent. It's dangerous. It's horrible. And my nephew has autism, and the police had to be called because he left the house the other day. And I just, everything, the cases get more and more extreme. So I'm so inspired by all the people who cared so much to call in to protect people who struggle with mental illness. So I hope I answered well correctly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And let me just thank you again for opening up with your own personal story and sharing your personal journey. That is very, very powerful. And we're grateful that you called in and gave us your remarks. Thank you.
Caller with a phone number ending in 2970. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with a phone number ending in 2970. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
My name is Audrey George, and I want to speak on item 3, item 4, and general public comment.
Okay, Audrey, you have 2 minutes for your agenda items and 1 minute for general public comment.
Yes, thanks. Regarding item 3, I agree with all those in the community who want Mitch O'Farrell exposed as a hypocrite he is, but we know he has not ever been an advocate for the unhoused people in Echo Park. SMART teams were intended to ensure trained mental health workers would respond to mental health crises, limiting someone's reaction with police officers. I believe each of you has conceded that cops cannot and should not act as mental health first responders. So why is this still happening? We now have a great opportunity to follow the passionate demands to defund LAPD's budget, remembering, please, that a city's budget reflects its moral values and the moral values of its civic leaders. As always, I ask that you defer to the facts and wisdom derived from the thorough research, on-the-ground service, and lived experience that LA Can consistently and persistently provides to you. Money that is spent on having cops work as case managers and outreach workers in the SMART program must be redirected to investments in community-based solutions that include mental health, trained professional mental health workers as being the first responders. Moreover, the Care Plus system creates fear for many in the houseless community as it forces them to move their personal belongings and, even worse, runs the risk of them losing them in the care process.
an unthinkable outrage, especially in this time of COVID. Cop presence results in a level of anxiety that worsens mental health issues. So I ask you, is the issue the person who has the mental health crisis, or is the issue with how people are being treated in general by programs established by City Council? It is also important to mention that LAPD continues to kill Skid Row residents living with mental illness and continues to have incredibly high rates of police interaction, arrests, and use of force under the ongoing Safer Cities initiative. It is an acknowledged fact that mental health emergencies in Skid Row community are, for the most part, not related to any violent crime and should not prompt LAPD response. The increase in the resources for DMH's emergency outreach teams that I mentioned earlier is a demand made to ensure 24/7 availability in Skid Row and is a stepped-up public education. It must include stepped-up public education and outreach to increase utilization of mental health response teams instead of police and or security interventions. I want to bring your attention to, in number 4, to the LA Times article of this week about how the cost of new affordable housing units has reached $531,000.
Thank you, caller. Your time is up. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 7696. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 7696. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Michael Seeley, item 3.
Okay, Michael, you have 1 minute.
Well, I was speaking to a former mental health worker who used to, back in the 70s, and how, she was able to deal with a great number of crises without the intervention of the police, and, that it was counterproductive to involve the police in such things as it raised anxiety and panic levels, and only in 1 out of 100 times is it necessary to involve the police when the person perhaps has a gun and is making threats. So I would advocate that, in these sweeps, we have no involvement of the police, and that we transfer funding to a adequate mental health oriented agency. So care plus with police is care minus. That's, I think, the essence of what I need to say. It's for the public safety. We need to develop new agencies that are unarmed.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Caller with the phone number ending in 3733. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 3733. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hello?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Sorry. I'm listening to it on the other line. Is it time for me to speak?
Yes, it is. Just, if you don't mind turning down the other line, we can hear you, and we're ready for you.
Okay, I'm ready when you're ready.
Go ahead. Your name and which items you'd like to speak on, please.
Hi, my name is Kim Olson. I'd like to speak on item 3 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each.
Thank you. I want to reiterate what the community has been telling you today, that law enforcement are not appropriate first responders. We need to separate law enforcement from mental health issues as much as possible, and especially with our unhoused community. So many of our unhoused are traumatized by these interactions. I work with an unhoused outreach every Sunday, and I know someone else from our outreach commented on this. I have so many interactions every weekday, every Sunday, and we've never, ever had to call in police. There are so many other options if we choose to fund them. If we choose to send in people who are specialists in this, and we stop criminalizing homelessness, if we stop criminalizing poverty. From an LA Times article from January 21st, 2020, during the third quarter of 2019, officers used force on homeless people 217 times, a 26% increase from the same period in 2018, when that number was 172. This is a shocking increase of force against a vulnerable population, and these are numbers reported directly by the LAPD. Our unhoused community is 9 times more likely to commit suicide than our housed community, and we are traumatizing them. Each day, 4 or more unhoused people will die in this city. It is an epidemic in the midst of a pandemic, historic heat waves, and historic wildfires. This is a community that is suffering. We should not criminalize them. We need services and housing. Adding more law enforcement is costly and dangerous. We cannot make sleeping, eating, and sitting down, resting, and going to the bathroom criminal acts and fail to provide any alternatives.
Time is up. Thank you so much.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8672. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 8672. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Tia Lappy, and I'm speaking on item 3 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each.
So you are, quote, funding the security and sanitation for those Echo Park restrooms as if you're doing some service, Mitch. Can you tell me where those showers are? And by funding security, what exactly do you mean? You've been given access to an authority over the lives of tens of thousands of people, and by funding the police, your constituents' blood is on your hands. You thank the caller gracious enough to share her own personal interactions with the cops for admitting she had bipolar and had her face pushed into the gravel by the cops. Tell me, Mitch, would you call the cops, and would they be your first resource if a partner, friend, or family member of yours is having a mental health crisis? You can answer that when I'm done with this comment. Please do. Mental health is a universal issue, so I'm sure you've had to deal with it yourself. I know I have. And those lucky enough to access services are often those lucky enough to have to avoid constant traumatic interaction with the police. In California, it takes only 600 hours of training to get a badge, which at this point just means a license to kill. And it takes 1,600 hours to become a cosmetologist. So, frankly, I have no question. I have more faith in a hairdresser assisting someone with their mental health than the cops. Healthcare professionals take an oath to do no harm, and it is constant harm and harassment that's being faced and being forced on houseless folks every single day. They're traumatized and re-traumatized daily. And it's unbelievable and completely illogical that the police get to be a part of this.
Thank you. Your time is up. Thank you.
Caller with the phone number ending in 3595. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 3595. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 3595. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Let's go to the next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 8879. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 8879. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Lex Roman, item 3 in general public comment.
You have 1 minute for each.
We don't want cops involved in homelessness. We don't want cops involved in mental health. I don't understand why we have to keep calling and telling y'all this. Mike, Marquise, y'all have been at these town halls with BLMLA and COCO. Over and over again, people say they don't want the police involved in their communities at all. No police. Right? We're out here in the streets saying we don't want police involved in anything. But people name homelessness and mental health specifically quite often. And people tell heartbreaking stories, like the story of Victor Valencia, who might be alive today if compassionate, unarmed people had responded to his moment of crisis. I've called the Department of Mental Health for help with folks who seem like they need mental health support. They almost always send cops. They tell you to call LAPD or the sheriff. One time I did that. Someone was walking in the middle of the street. I thought they might hurt themselves or another car. And I requested the mental health unit when I called. When the cops arrived, they handcuffed that person and told me that if he didn't have a home, they would be taking him to jail. That's the response for people who need mental health care in this city. We take them to jail or we just kill them. Get cops out of homelessness and mental health. Stop funding the murder and harassment of your residents. Defund the police.
Thank you. Thank you. Next caller.
Caller with the phone number ending in 2212. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 2212. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Glenn Bailey, item 4 in general public comment.
All right, you have 1 minute for each.
Thank you. My name is Glenn Bailey. I'm president of the Northridge East Neighborhood Council. And related to both of these items, I just wanted to request that this committee, and as a respectful request, consider agendizing a motion that's in Council File 19-1413. It is a motion by Councilmember Koretz, which asks to initiate an effort for outdoor emergency shelter locations in each council district where manageably sized and well-managed homeless encampments could be established, featuring restroom facilities, sanitation service, homeless outreach services, and security. The Northridge East Neighborhood Council has voted to support this motion, if amended, to eliminate the last sentence regarding a shared housing program, as it is not related to outdoor emergency shelter locations. This is not a permanent solution, but we feel it is a better short-term solution than the current situation, especially given the Judge Carter mandate to the city of Los Angeles. And this motion was originally introduced on November 15th of last year and referred to this committee at that time. So we are respectfully asking that it be agendized and the conversation begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And we'll go until 11:15, which extends us a little past 1 hour for comment. So we'll go to 11:15. Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 0899. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 08.
On November 15th of last year.
Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Okay, let me turn off my thing. Hold on. Okay, hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, and we're ready for you.
Okay, hi everyone. This is Stacy Dawson-Stearns, and I'd like to comment on 3 in general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each item.
Okay, let's just look at 3. Okay, we're weary of the willful ignorance of City Council to reel in a violent and out-of-control police force that controls over 50% of our city budget. And so it's appalling to me that you continue to engage with the idea that the LAPD are fit to engage with an at-risk population. City Council, you are guilty of neglect, abuse, and dehumanization of unhoused people through your sweeps, your restrictions on oversized vehicle parking, and your blatant refusal to divest from the LAPD in order to invest in mental health services, educational support services, and affordable housing. I'll move on to general comment. I just want to take a moment to point out that the unhoused are not the only ones who experience mental illness. And that lack of empathy and compassion and narcissism are also conditions that might be linked to mental illness. And I'd like the council to sit back and hear what I just said and say, let's stop criminalizing mental illness and let's acknowledge that maybe all of us suffer from it. Okay, this committee, you should be ashamed of yourselves for asking your constituents to do so much emotional, physical, organizing, and intellectual labor for you. It's astonishing that we're forced every day to appeal to your basic humanity. Mitch, I'm sorry to say this. I want to be kind to you, but it's very hard for me to, because the only time you respond to comments is when your reputation is threatened or when it makes you look good. We need council members who do not suffer from fragility issues and who are humble enough to actually listen to the needs and demands of their constituents, whether you like them or not. Please stop defending yourself and start defending Angelenos, all of us. Thank you, and I yield my time.
Next caller, please.
Caller with the phone number ending in 1676. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 1676. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Yes, hi. My name is Kevin. I'm a reporter with Knock LA, and I'm with the Sunrise Movement. I'd like to speak on item number 3 and general public comment.
Kevin, you have 1 minute for each item.
Thank you. I want to echo what everybody else has said, that police should not be involved in any sort of, really any sort of contact with the unhoused populations, because they cannot be trusted to handle it peacefully and non-violently. We see this just from the LAPD's own data. And I also want to bring up the fact that, you know, being unhoused in the first place exacerbates homelessness, and the city, or exacerbates mental health, and the city hasn't done anything about, you know, providing shelter to people. So it's really just unfair to be able to expect people to, you know, take care of these issues on their own. People need help. And my general public comment, I want to say this directly to David Rue, but for some reason he's not at this meeting. I guess he has an excused absence. I'm not sure what that's about. He did miss a really important vote of City Council last week and told us it was for a doctor appointment. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the public should know what's going on with David Rue, because, you know, he's up for re-election, and it's really weird to keep missing these important meetings. But what I want to say is, David Rue, why did you not have any cooling centers in your district? This actually goes for several of you. Why were there no cooling centers in this heat wave for your unhoused neighbors, for your vulnerable elderly neighbors who had to suffer without air conditioning, unsheltered? It's absolutely absurd. There were only 6 cooling centers in the city of LA this past weekend during the heat wave, and you all just were sitting in your air-conditioned mansions not really caring. So, you know, read the reporting on this. It's in Knock LA, it's in Curbed, and it's unacceptable. Right now, the air is so smoky, I can't open my doors and windows. I'm privileged enough to have AC. What about my neighbors who are sitting outside to, you know, being criminalized for their existence? Put them in the cooling centers. Open them up right now. This is ridiculous. Take my time.
Thank you, caller.
Fuck you.
Next speaker.
Caller with the phone number ending in 3515. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on. Caller with the phone number ending in 3515. Please state your name and what items you would like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Linda. I would like to speak on item number 3 in public comment.
Okay, Linda, you have 1 minute for each.
Okay, thank you. I definitely appreciate all of the compassion and sympathy that's been expressed to the unsheltered and homeless in Los Angeles. I would like to express a personal story, just like some other caller did. My two brothers, my older brothers, actually, have both chosen a life of drug addiction. Their drug of choice is meth, and it's also heroin. And this is despite growing up in a good family. This is despite all the help that we've offered them. So, yeah, those smart workers, I would like to know how many smart workers are out there. I would like to know how many are dedicated to downtown. I feel like it should be a combination of police officers and smart workers, because you know what? I feel really bad for anybody that comes across my brothers when they're drunk or high or angry. Because if they come across a smart worker, they're probably going to hurt them. So, yeah, I do appreciate all the compassion, but I would like to also be realistic. I would like to know how many smart workers are dedicated to downtown Los Angeles. Generally, I would like to know what's going on with our council member. Do we not have a council member until October, till De Leon is seated? So those are my comments. I don't think it's okay. I would like to know these smart workers, are they going to deal with the homeless people that are in the streets of downtown naked with machetes, bats? I don't think it's okay that they have couches and dressers and beds on the sidewalks. I don't think they should be violently removed. Maybe they could be given advance warning, and all the people that are wanting to help them should help them move their stuff in advance so it's not a shock. Definitely shouldn't be violent. The police definitely should not be hurting the citizens of our city, of anywhere.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
That completes.
Thank you.
That completes time. Thank you. And that concludes our public comment. Thank you, everyone. And colleagues, we were joined much earlier by Mr. Harris Dawson. Unless there are any objections, I'd like to move items 1 and 2 on consent. It looks as though there are no objections, Mr. Villanueva. If you could please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Micho Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Rue is not in the meeting, so it's approved, sir.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to move to item 3 now. If we could read the item, Ms. Pranita.
Item number 3, motion, Lee Rodriguez, relative to the Greater Los Angeles homeless count and current status of the mental evaluation unit and the system-wide mental assessment response team.
All right. Thank you so much. Colleagues and listeners, there's a reason that I wanted to make sure that we hear this in committee. I want to thank Mr. Lee and Ms. Rodriguez for introducing this motion earlier. But I'd like to direct everyone's attention to Council File 20-0769. That's at Council File 20-0769, which is the motion that was introduced and went through a couple of months ago through Council that talks about how we are beginning the process of decoupling non-emergency, unarmed responses to people in distress and removing police officers from those types of calls. It's something that we are engaging in, and part of that decoupling is hearing this motion and having the report from the various entities, including the LAPD, because as many callers recognized and conveyed, and as we all know, the overwhelming majority of, as far as the agency that responds to calls related to people experiencing homelessness are from the LAPD. And they are intertwined into the mental evaluation unit and the system-wide mental assessment response team, or the SMART teams. So in order to begin that decoupling process where we no longer dispatch police officers to non-emergency, non-violent, non-criminal responses, we need the full report from them. And as many of you have heard also, and I've heard it myself from police officers, they're very eager to decouple their responses to these types of calls and incidents. So that's what this process is all about. We also need to take a look at what that discrepancy is. There's nearly 40% discrepancy between the LA Times analysis and LASA data regarding the number of people experiencing homelessness who are affected by mental health disabilities and or substance abuse disorder. And that's a startling discrepancy. We've not yet heard from LASA about the reasons for their drastically lower homeless count statistics related to this issue. And UCLA did a study that even shows a higher rate of mental health issues and substance addiction issues affecting people experiencing homelessness. As this council dedicates billions of dollars to helping and housing people experiencing homelessness, we have an ethical and fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we're effectively utilizing our resources to help people get well and making sure that we incorporate mental and physical health and well-being into all of our work. By evaluating our current programming for responding to individuals experiencing homelessness with mental health and or addiction issues, often exacerbated by homelessness, as a council, we can help ensure that the intersection between homelessness and mental and physical health is directly and effectively addressed. So for all the callers who are understandably distressed about having to, let their feelings be known over and over and over again, the reason that we introduced this motion back in June, the reason that we are going through these processes are to do exactly what most of you, if not all of you, called in to advocate for. So this is just that process taking place. So I just wanted to put that out there so that folks don't get the idea that we don't hear you loud and clear. It's just that we have to go through this legislative process as expediently as we can to get that rolling and make responses to people in distress safer and create an effective system for doing that effectively, humanely, safely, and remove armed response from that process entirely. And that is exactly where we're going with these initiatives. So thank you. And I know that we have colleagues who would like to speak on this issue. So Ms. Rodriguez and Mr. Bonin. Yes, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. O'Farrell, and thank you for really setting kind of the tone of what this conversation is really about. And I want to bring it to the attention of of the folks listening, because it was even with respect to the conversation that we engaged in yesterday, when I talked about the projections of aligning resources based on the populations that we know we're dealing with. Much of our responsibility is, we can't just throw money blindly at issues or helping to. We need to be more thoughtful and constructive with how we allocate resources and programmatically address where the needs are. And right now, we need to really reflect very deeply on what those real numbers are so that we can allocate resources accordingly. Now, LAPD, from the very beginning, they didn't want to be in the business of doing this enforcement. But it was the directive, not at their own choosing, but that's what ended up becoming part of the practice. This mental evaluation unit, assessing what the numbers look like and getting more accurate numbers around what our populations are so that we can better address the needs in a more thoughtful manner, in a manner that doesn't align the resources potentially with really to help, as you mentioned, decoupling the response from being an LAPD response, that we can do so in a way that actually better addresses the needs of the population that it serves, is part of the conversation. So while it might be easy for individuals to lament and extrapolate the most negative amongst the efforts, the reality is this is an effort to, frankly, dig deep into where the root of the problems lie and actually address it and shift it and change the way we've been doing business. And I think that is the goal of everybody through this process. But the best way to help address that is to know the numbers and to really get down to that granular level so that we can allocate resources accordingly and that we can align our response more effectively to what the need is. And so I just want to make mention of that just in with respect to your opening comments as well, because again, it's very convenient narrative sometimes to suggest otherwise. But the reality is, I know that the commitment of this body and this council has been one to help migrate our efforts into more thoughtful response systems that aren't just relegated to one particular agency to help address. It's not fair to those officers, and it's not fair to the individuals seeking the response and the need. What they need response with is mental health professionals, and it's about that partnership with the county that we need to see more of a presence in, and making sure that we get those support services so that we can create the models that actually get to the root of the problem. And so, anyways, I just wanted to thank you for that, and for that opening, because I think again, too often we hear the convenient narratives that I often think, and I just want to reinforce how I think it's the commitment of the individuals present that we migrate from what we've been doing. And part of that conversation is to get to the root of where the need is and to get to the true numbers. Because when we get to those real numbers, when we get to those projections and estimate exactly what the need is, then we can allocate resources accordingly. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. And yeah, right now, the reality is that the police respond. And we are trying to change that reality. But that in of itself is a process, and we're very eager and have a sense of urgency to change that process. Yes, Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to you and Ms. Rodriguez for your comments, and to everybody who called. I firmly support the idea of decoupling LAPD from mental health response. I think it's essential, and I think it's something, as many of you have said, that I think everybody really is in agreement with at this point. There are very few people who are resistant to that. The question is, how do we get there? How fast do we get there? And what does it look like? And that's what's really being done in the other committee and with the other motion. But I want to underscore how important this is. I've had a couple experiences with people in my universe. I had a friend of mine who was, about a year ago, in pretty significant mental distress, and a number of our friends were very concerned about him, and they were concerned he was about to do harm to himself. And it was a situation in which a number of his friends came to respond and try to help him, and they were terrified of calling law enforcement. And they called me in the middle of the incident and said, can you guarantee that if we call, the mental health unit, the MEU, will come out? And I couldn't, because one, there's not that many of them, and the response time is long, and obviously the armed officer would come first. And so they didn't. They did not call for help. Fortunately, it wound up. I have another friend who has a son who suffers from significant mental health issues, and there are a number of times when she has had to call LAPD, and she has stopped doing so because her goal was not to have her son harmed or have her son arrested, and the situation escalated into circumstances that she found very uncomfortable and felt guilty about. So this absolutely has to be done, and I agree that a lot of the information here is foundational and is necessary to be able to do it. What I want to point out, though, is when we talk about the issue of mental health response and moving it from LAPD or decoupling it, we tend to only talk about half the problem. There's the obvious situation where a call is labeled as being about a mental health crisis. Both of the situations I just talked about is when a call would have been or has been specifically labeled as a mental health crisis. That's easy. That's easy to decouple. That's when you send out mental health personnel. The thing that is tougher that we also need to address is what happens when LAPD gets a call about a crime in progress. Maybe it's a burglary or something like that. And when LAPD responds, it becomes evident that the person involved is in the middle of a mental health episode. Then how do we get the appropriate services there so that does not end up with a violent or an unpleasant altercation? And so in addition to the things in this motion, I'm hoping it'll be a friendly, considered a friendly amendment. If we could also ask LAPD for a little bit more information, specifically, and I can send this to Mr. Villanueva if he wants, the number of calls that LAPD gets that are labeled as a mental health call, the number of calls that LAPD gets that are not labeled as a mental health call, but then turn out to involve a mental health issue, the number of times that the MEU or SMART teams are actually summoned, the number of times that the MEU or the SMART teams actually respond, because I think there's a big difference between the summoning and the response, and any breakdown, if possible, of how long that response takes. Because clearly, as we decouple, we need to significantly grow the amount of mental health resources available, and I think having those data points will help us in constructing what needs to be constructed as the alternative. Thank you.
Mr. Bono, I think those are great points, and we will absolutely get that in the report back because it brings up the larger question, which we need to daylight entirely, and that is the complete lack of response from county mental health when it comes to someone who's experiencing homelessness, who is in distress or non-responsive entirely. And I've heard so many instances where outreach workers will call mental health and they just don't show up. So that's a real issue. And I've encountered that problem myself when I've visited some of the encampments in the 13th. And we should ask the right kind of questions that get us the right kind of answers, no matter how startlingly inadequate they may be. Because we really have to get to the bottom of why there is a complete lack of a safety net for people who are not under a roof as it relates to getting county mental health services. That is a great unanswered question and the biggest elephant in the room if there ever was one. So let's add these on to the report so we can just get a clear understanding of the lack or clear understanding of the data that you're requesting and where the a greater understanding of the deficiencies that I just described. Thank you, Mr. Harris-Dawson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councilwoman Rodriguez and Councilmember Bonin, for all of your comments and the comments of everyone who called in. I want to put a comment on the record, and I want everybody who called to recognize that the council recognizes this part of the problem, and I do this just for a matter of the record and just so folks can hear it. I'm not making any kind of motion or amendment or anything like that. And I just want to point out that we are not unaware that as we build back the safety net for mental health folks, for mental health patients, as we build back that safety net that started getting torn apart in the 1980s and continued up until very recently, as we build that back and as we create a world where you can call a mental health professional and actually expect to get one or two or as many as it takes to solve the problem, I think the council is fully committed to building that back. We do understand that we build that back in a context, and it is not free of the rest of the things that happens in the world. And so we are very well aware that some people will get the benefit of a mental health call, and other people are going to still get the cops called on them, even though they're having a mental health episode. And that gets at the problem of bias and racism and white supremacy and all of it. I'm reminded of a story right when I took office, right on the border, that Councilmember Herb Wesson and I share, where the officer is confronting a woman, a senior citizen woman who weighs 85 pounds, in an alley who has a kitchen knife. And the one officer says to the other officer, "This is so-and-so. She's off of her meds. This is like the 8th call that we've had with her over the last several months." And they say to her, "Drop the knife, get on your knees." She takes 1/2 step towards them. They fire completely within policy. This woman loses her life. Her life is taken from her. I raised as an example because I'd like to see a world where a person like her gets the benefit of the doubt. And we don't have that yet, and building this back doesn't create it. But I want to just put a bookmark there that we're aware of it, that we have to continue to confront it, and as we see solutions to that, we will aggressively pursue them. Because again, we some people say make America great again. For a lot of people, it was never that great, right? There are parts of it that we need to bring back, and certainly mental health services and mental health responses is one of them. But we need to do away with a lot of the biases and the particular ways in which particular people are viewed as threats and dangerous, and other people are not. And so with that, I'll yield back to the chair.
Thank you, Mr. Harris-Dawson. You bring up a great point. When we go down this road, part of the thread will invariably lead to changes of protocols when the PD does get those calls that had been misdirected in the first place. Caller mistakenly or judgmentally calls the police on someone, an elderly 85-pound woman who poses no threat, who picks up a kitchen knife. Those calls are still going to happen. But what we're doing now could also lead to a change of protocol within the LAPD, within the department, so that the policy itself changes. So there's a greater sense of de-escalation for recognizing something for what it is. And that's going to require more training and a deeper understanding and more collaboration with mental health experts working hand in hand with the LAPD. So that's why it's good that we go down these roads to see what it can daylight in those respects as well. Thank you. All right, so colleagues, then we'll approve this motion without opposition. And Mr. Villanueva, please call the roll.
Certainly, sir. Councilmember Micho Paro.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew, who's not in the meeting. So it's approved as amended with the amendment added by Councilmember Bonin, sir.
Terrific. Thank you. Colleagues, I'd like to go to item number 4. Ms. Matia, if you could please read the item.
Item number 4, motion Bonin Harris Dawson relative to the opportunities to match people who are unhoused with new affordable housing units.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bonin, Mr. Harris Dawson, for this motion. With many of our temporary COVID-19 shelter projects ramping down, like Project Room Key and our Rec and Park centers, now more than ever is the time to focus on strategic transitions that keep Angelenos housed. By making sure that people we successfully housed during our local emergency, so they remain housed, we can prevent the additional trauma. Similarly, we need to house people with lower acuity scores and explore the answers to the questions presented in this motion. So, Mr. Bonin, if you would like to take this over, and you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, I put this motion in because sometimes it feels like the right hand and the left hand are not working together. We have, through either affordable housing being included in developments that we as elected officials insist upon, or density bonuses or other regulations, affordable housing units that are being built. And at least in my part of town, I have a lot of people who are very skeptical, often rightly so, that they're being used for affordable housing, that people are gaming the system, and they're putting a relative in there, and the units are not being used. As these units are coming online, part of the issue is that the people who are developing the projects don't have any experience in affordable housing. And what I'm hoping to do in this motion is find out what we can do to either A, require, or B, invite, or C, incentivize that the units being created be matched with the needs that we are identifying. In this motion, I identify unhoused in particular, but perhaps there's some that could be used for other low-income housing needs in the city of. And what we have now is the two systems aren't communicating well. And what we are seeing more of a success of in Los Angeles is through the county's Housing for Health program, the people concerned do master leasing. If we are getting a couple hundred units created in the course of a year, can we get some of those signed up with master leasing so that LASA has a quick pathway to get people into housing? And it's just a common sense sort of matchmaking thing that we should be doing. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin. I understand Meg Barclay from the CEO's office is here. Meg, if you would like to weigh in and give some thoughts, this has been this is an element of a real big theme this week, this motion and Mr. Bonin's comments. Do you have anything to add?
No, not. We will continue. We actually. Hi, this is Meg Barclay, City Homeless Coordinator with the in the office of the City Administrative Officer, and I apologize. I'm in kind of a loud, echoey room right now, but it's the only space available to me. Yeah, we actually, since this motion was introduced, we've actually even started looking into this issue to figure out what, if any, if there are any legal or fair housing issues associated with pushing, or what we could do legally to actually push or even encourage or incentivize the use of the CES by affordable housing operators to get exactly at the issues that Mr. Bonin raised. I think the other thing that could be really exciting about doing something like this is that there are a lot of lower acuity households who are homeless but may not need supportive services like permanent supportive housing and affordable housing. They may just need a rent limited covenanted unit that is at where the rent is at a level that they can afford and will stay that way. So we are definitely looking into this. I think this is a really exciting potential resource for those
lower acuity folks that are in the homeless services system and just need just a lower rent that they could afford on a long-term basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I see Ms. Ann Sewell on here. If anyone else has anything to add now, otherwise we'll just go ahead and approve the motion.
I have something to add. I just wanted to thank Mr. Bonin for bringing this motion. I think it's a very, very important issue. The other side of this coin that needs to be pointed out is, this affordable housing requirement that we have for developers and who moves into those housing could become quite scandalous. I've had situations in my district where the developer was openly planning to move in the daughter of the architect who was a college student. And, they were, and there was nothing illegal about that at all. It didn't violate any city policy or anything like that. And so I think we need to take a hard look at this. And I think this is just the first step in making sure, as we require a developer to provide this asset to the city of Los Angeles, that the asset actually benefits the city of Los Angeles. So I'm very grateful for this motion and proud to support it.
Great point. I mean, that scenario, that should be illegal. We need to figure out how to make that not legal. That's crazy. All right. Thank you so much. All right. With that, Mr. Villanueva, we'll call the roll.
Certainly, sir. Councilmember Mitch O'Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew. It passes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Villanueva. Now that brings us to item 5. Ms. Amatia, if you could please read the item.
Item number 5, Homeless Strategy Committee reports relative to the Enhanced Comprehensive Homeless Strategy Quarterly Performance Report for the first and second quarter of fiscal year 2019-2020.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Barclay, if you're still on the line, I just have a question on this item. The HSC report gives various updates, including a component outlining the coordination between LAHSA, the city and county agencies with respect to outreach, service delivery, and data collection. Page 2 includes mentions of strategies 4.3 and additional health assessments done at encampments across the city. Do we have any information on what this assessment yielded, and how did this new information change your approach to services and outreach? Were there any implications that came to bear from this? Is Meg Barclay still on the line? We might have lost her. Yeah, I don't think there's anyone else from the CAO's office on.
Well, hi, this is Meg. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Did you hear my question?
Okay. Sorry about that. I heard your question, yes. And Mr. O'Farrell, I think you may be referring to the third and fourth quarterly report that was just heard by the Homeless Strategy Committee last month, which actually I think will be on your next agenda. However, I can tell you, I know that question came up when NHSC and LAHSA is preparing to have more information about that in the next quarterly report that would come to the Homeless Strategy Committee in October based on those questions. So I think we're still trying to figure out, and LAHSA is going to be providing hopefully some more information on what the outcomes of those health assessments are, and what it's meant. I can say I know that as far as testing goes, the testing positive rate of people for COVID-19 in encampments is actually lower than the general population. It's about 2%, which is good. But as far as any other implications of that information and those assessments, LAHSA will be prepared to provide more of that information in the next QPR.
Great. Thank you. That sounds good. Colleagues, any comments on this at all? All right. So What I'd like to do is receive and file this item. Mr. Villanueva, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember Mitchell Farrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Monica Rodriguez.
Aye.
Councilmember Mike Bonin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Councilmember David Drew. The item is received and filed, sir.
Thank you. And do we have anything else before this committee on the agenda today?
The desk is clear, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you all. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.